Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. When most people picture a FIRE lifestyle, financial independence, retire early, they picture someone retiring in their mid-30s and never earning another dollar, and maybe eating rice and beans. But the reality is, that's not what happens, or at least it doesn't have to be. Today, I want to dive into 3 modern versions of FIRE, where we approach the subject with more flexibility, balance, and realism rather than saying, let's retire crazy early and never work again. These strategies, Barista FIRE, Coast FIRE, and Flamingo FIRE, blend periods of intense savings with intentional work, creating a smoother path to financial independence. So whether you're looking to downshift your career or design a more creative lifestyle or simply build more breathing room into your life, one of these strategies just might work for you. Barista FIRE is where your investments cover part of your lifestyle and you work in a low-stress, part-time job to fill the rest. This is ideal for people who don't want to grind until they hit full FIRE, but they also don't want to retire just yet. It's ideal for people, say, in their 30s to their 50s who have a modest income and are looking for more work-life balance. In this case, your annual spending might be anywhere from $40,000 to, say, $75,000 a year. And when you go into Barista FIRE, your portfolio might be covering half of your expenses, with the other portion of your expenses being covered by your part-time work. So to have a portfolio that would sustain this, you might need anywhere from $500,000 to $1.5 million invested. And if you approach this diligently, it might take anywhere from 10 to 20 years to achieve. For instance, let's say we have a 45-year-old graphic designer who decides to leave her 9-to-5 job but keeps 3 freelance clients. Her portfolio covers her basic needs, and then she works 15 to 20 hours per week to cover extras and healthcare. When you start withdrawing from your portfolio, your withdrawal rate is actually quite low, maybe in the ballpark of 2%, because again, you're still working and earning an income, and your portfolio is only supporting part of your retirement. Once you fully step into retirement, which could be several decades down the road, or maybe you continue this for a lifetime, if you do fully step into retirement, then that withdrawal rate tends to get pushed up and it goes to maybe 4 or 5%. Now, the ideal accounts for this approach to FIRE, topping the list again, is going to be a traditional taxable brokerage account. There's no limitations on when you can access this money, and it gives you unlimited flexibility. I'm still going to sing the praises of, say, a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, giving you that tax-free growth, and later you can withdraw from this account completely tax-free. And if you did work for an employer who has an HSA and you took advantage of it, that is a golden account to have pretty much any day of the week. Now, this is really one of the few FIRE approaches where Social Security can play a major role later on in your traditional retirement years. Because let's say you worked full-time and then eventually mid-career stepped down to part-time work. If you continue working part-time through your 50s and your 60s, you're continuing to build up your Social Security benefits. So once you decide to claim, that benefit can be a meaningful portion of your retirement income. Coast FIRE is for people who want to save hard early and then let time and compound interest do the rest. This is a unique FIRE approach in the fact that you continue to work a full career and retire around traditional retirement age. Once you hit your Coast FIRE number, which might be $200,000 or $300,000 invested, and you try to hit this number as early as possible, maybe as soon as your late 20s or your early 30s, you technically no longer need to invest for your future. And the idea is that compound interest alone could grow your portfolio to your desired target nest egg by the time you reach full retirement age. But here's the reality. Most people who start out as disciplined savers tend to keep saving. They may not save as intensely as they did in those early years, but they usually continue contributing just at a more balanced and sustainable pace. So while you could entirely stop contributing to investments with this approach, most people who follow the Coast FIRE approach tend to save aggressively early on in their career, and then they taper off or reduce their savings rate over time as they allocate more money to other priorities that have come up in life. For example, let's say we have a teacher who's able to save $250,000 by the young age of 32. She still continues working full time, but But instead of pushing to the max on every single account after the age of 32, she sort of lets that money ride and has a lesser savings rate. By the age of 60, her accounts would be projected to grow to over 1.5 million without any further contributions. Now, with this approach, there really is no withdrawal strategy that's happening early because, again, someone who's following the Coast FIRE approach is continuing to work a traditional career and retire around a traditional age. So once they do step into retirement, they might use something like 4% as a withdrawal rate, maybe a 5% withdrawal rate, or some other dynamic withdrawal strategy. The ideal accounts for the Coast FIRE lifestyle are really those traditional retirement accounts and Roth accounts, simply because we're looking at a more traditional retirement age. So it's very likely that once you do step away from the workforce, you're going to be able to access this money without any penalties because you'll be at those traditional retirement ages. Now, I do still want to mention, if you want to step away from the workforce a little bit earlier, maybe you do want to put something aside into the taxable brokerage account because of its flexibility, but whenever possible, take advantage of tax-advantaged accounts, whether they're traditional, whether they're Roth, simply because they allow your money to grow as much as possible. But really, in this situation, the taxable brokerage account isn't as important because, again, we're just getting to that more traditional retirement age. Now, some people assume Coast FIRE results in a lower Social Security benefit. But that's not necessarily true. Most Coast FIRE folks still work full careers. They just don't save at the same intensity level after their early wins. You're still earning an income, and that absolutely counts towards your benefits calculation as far as Social Security is concerned. You've saved aggressively early on, and then you've tapered off your savings rate, but you still have strong earnings throughout your entire career. So Social Security will still be a meaningful portion once you reach retirement age. Now, personally, this is my favorite type of FIRE approach because I think it's so much easier to make sacrifices early on in your career before you have a mortgage and before you have a family. Also, I have a pretty big what if mindset. What if I'm forced to take time away from work later in life? What if a health issue comes up and changes everything? For me, it's not just theoretical. I had a brain tumor early on in my working career, and it took me an entire year to recover. So it shaped the way how I look at financial independence and made me value financial security much more highly, knowing that life can change on a dime. And that way I know I have a cushion no matter what happens. Coast FIRE is a way to buy yourself freedom and resilience, not just in retirement, but across your entire career. Flamingo FIRE is for people who say, I don't want to grind until I hit full fire. I just want enough saved that I can relax and let my money grow while I live a low-stress life. So this is where you aim to have 50% of your full FIRE number invested, and then you step into a state of semi-retirement. So let's say your full FIRE number is $1.5 million. Well, you would work and grind up until you had $750,000 invested. Then you would step back a little bit and enter where you do part-time work or consulting or passion-based income. Let's say a couple saves $800,000 by age 38, and then they move to Spain. They each freelance 10 to 15 hours a week while their portfolios remain untouched and grow to $1.5 million over the next 15 years. As far as a withdrawal strategy goes, there's no withdrawals in the early years of retirement. Remember, you're living on part-time income and leaving that portfolio untouched and giving it time to grow and letting compounding do its work. So by the time you do reach retirement, maybe you use a 4% withdrawal, maybe you use a 5% withdrawal, maybe you use a guardrails approach, just something that's more traditional of a typical retirement withdrawal. But during those early years, you're just living on your part-time income, not touching the portfolio. Now, the ideal mix of investment accounts to make this a successful retirement, number one, I'm going to say a traditional brokerage account. Yes, you should absolutely have a Roth or a traditional or a mixture of the two, because having that tax-free or tax-deferred growth is a great way to make your money grow over time, and you are aiming for a more traditional retirement age in this situation. But because you are entering that state of semi-retirement and only doing part-time work, I want you to still have a traditional brokerage account, because if something comes up, I still think you need to have a way to access funds. So make sure you have that traditional brokerage in your arsenal. Now, how Social Security will play a role really depends on how you approach Flamingo FIRE. You likely have strong earnings in the beginning of your career, and then if you step into more part-time role, you are likely going to have lesser Social Security than if you otherwise would have stayed into a full-time position. But you could still have Social Security play a substantial role in your retirement income once you reach full retirement age or whenever you decide to claim, because you're still paying into the system. That is, assuming you're working within the US and not retiring abroad, because if you do your part-time work abroad, that's not going to factor into Social Security. So your benefit could be reduced, it could be minimal, really depends on your situation. It's easy to confuse Flamingo FIRE, Barista FIRE, and Coast FIRE because on the surface, they all involve some combination of early savings and perhaps part-time work or still full-time work. But the difference in timing, mindset, and money strategy are pretty major, so let's break it down. Barista FIRE is a bridge. You are not financially independent yet. You need to continue to work to supplement your income. Barista FIRE is a stepping stone, but your portfolio alone cannot fully support your lifestyle, so you are still reliant on work, whether it's part-time, consulting, or some other type. Flamingo FIRE is a glide. You've saved a big chunk, 50% of your full FIRE number, but you're not withdrawing from your portfolio. You're not fully retiring, you're stepping back and you're easing into a lower stress lifestyle. You're working part-time, you're still earning an income. The goal isn't to be fully retired. The goal is to ease up on stress and have a slower paced life. Coast FIRE is a cruise. With Coast FIRE, you already hit your FIRE trajectory, but now you're at cruising altitude and your portfolio, importantly, still needs time to grow. You're still working full-time, but the burden is not on you that you have to contribute to your investments. You likely still do, but you don't have to, because without you adding another dime to your investments with the Coast FIRE strategy, you should be allowing compound interest to carry this portfolio to where you would be supported totally in your retirement. You would be financially free, but your portfolio needs decades to get there still. All three of these move you towards financial independence, but they do so in a different manner. The truth is, not everyone wants to sprint through their career and then completely hang up their hat at the age of 40. And that's what makes these strategies so powerful. These paths soften the extremes of the original FIRE movement. They recognize that you can blend freedom and work, saving and living, future planning, and present enjoyment. You're still moving towards financial independence, but you're doing so on your terms. So if traditional FIRE feels too rigid and then traditional retirement feels too far away, maybe one of these strategies would work better. If you're curious how these types of FIRE fit into the overall bigger picture, I do have an entire video of which this is just a piece where I go over these 6 different FIRE styles and I break them all down in detail. So if you want to check out the other 3, check out that main video. Let me know which one appeals to you most. Leave your thoughts in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye. The ideal account mix for this type of retirement, people. Why can I not do this one? Are you all in on Leo? Jeez, Pete. As if something comes up, cops didn't care. That better be an emergency. It probably isn't. I just think cops like to hit the siren just to bug me. I know, it's not true, but you know.